Don't forget to like and subscribe to Jolie Knots Crochet. Share with your friends. Hit that little notification bell so you can get notified when new patterns release. All our videos are available in left and right-handed tutorials. Hi everyone, welcome back to Jolie Knots Crochet. I'm Crystal and today we are going to be making this crystal coat cardigan. Now I call it crystal coat because it does look like there are little crystals in it all around, pockets and a hood, and then we'll also be making this cute little sash to be able to tie it around your waist. Now you could also forego the sash and put some buttons on the front. That's up to you. You can customize it however you like. The size that I'm making today is a size 2 extra large. It does come in a small, medium, extra large, 2X, all the way up to 3X. We will be using a 7mm hook for this project, and we're going to be working on all from the bottom to the top in one panel, and then separating from our front panels to our back panels, adding the arms, the hood, and finally then adding our pockets at the end. For this video, I worked a size 2X. I wanted my cardigan to be more oversized than fitted, so I chose the 2X size. Now the yarn I used for this is Ice Yarns in Atlas. I used 12 balls of these, which is approximately 1,700 yards. It is a 100% acrylic yarn, and it is a bulky 5 weight. I used a 7mm hook for this project. You'll also need 2 stitch markers and a tapestry needle. Go ahead and grab your materials and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so getting started, everything we're doing is going to be multiples of 8 plus 3. Now I'm going to make a large swatch of the pattern so you can see the pattern, but for your starting chains in the size that you want, you're going to want to check the description box below and it'll tell you exactly how many chains to get started, okay? 1, 2, 3. Okay, now that I've got my starting chain, I am going to double crochet into the 3rd chain from the hook. Now this chain 2 here, that will not count as a stitch. So this will be your first stitch, your double crochet. We're going to double crochet into every stitch all the way down. All right, and there's the end of my first row. Just double crochet all the way down. Okay, so our repeat rows are going to be rows 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's a 4-row repeat, okay? So we're going to start with the chain of 2. That does not count as a stitch, and it will not count as a stitch throughout your pattern. Okay, we're going to place 3 double crochets. 2, 3, and now here's your repeat. For this row, we're chaining 3, skipping 3, and double crocheting 5. So you'll have that all the way to the end, chain 3, skip 3, 5 double crochets. And I will meet you at the end. Okay, so here I am at the end of my row. I'm going to chain my 3, skip my 3, and I should have 3 stitches left, just like I started with 3 double crochets in the beginning.
And that is the end of row 2. To get started on row 3, we'll chain 2, turn your work. Remember, your chain 2 does not count as a stitch, and we'll 3 double crochet again. 3. Now when you get to your chain space, we're not working into the chain, we're actually dropping down to the previous row and working 3 double crochets into that middle stitch. Remember, we skipped 3, there's a middle stitch, and we'll work 3 double crochets. Now the idea of this is to be a closed pattern, so you do not need to pull your stitch up to the height of your work. As we move along further, you'll see how it starts to come together. Once you've got your 3 double crochets in there, you're going to now, with your 5 double crochets, work a double crochet on top of each double crochet. So that's your repeat. Will be 3 drop stitches, 5 double crochets, 3 dropped, 5 double crochets. And when you get to your 3 dropped, make sure that they're all into the same middle stitch. We should be ending our row again with those last 3 double crochets. So now I'm at the end, and I'm just going to finish out my row with the 3 double crochets that I had, just like I did in the beginning. And that will be the end of row 3. It should look like this. Now, row 4, chain 2, turn your work. And in this row, we're going to start with 7 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now your 7th double crochet should fall into the double crochet right after your 3 double crochet grouping. Now here we're going to begin our repeat again. Essentially, our groupings are going to be staggered. So here, here, just like that, okay? So here's where we're going to start the same repeat that we did down here. Chain 3, skip 3, 5 double crochets. Chain 3, skip 3, 5 double crochets. All the way to the end. We started this row with 7 double crochets to begin with, and that's the same way you should end this row, with 7 double crochets. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And here's what your work should look like now. Now, our next row, row 1, 2, 3, 4. Now for row 5, we're going to chain 2, turn our work. We will start and end this row with 7 double crochets, just like we did the row before. Now we've gotten to our chain 3, so we're going to do our 3 double crochets as the drop stitch into the same stitch below. And then 5 double crochets beyond that. So the repeat is the same, but since we're staggering, one will be 3 double crochets in the beginning, and one will be 7 double crochets. And then the chain 3 and the 3 drop stitches will just be staggered. Double crochets after our 3 drop stitch. And now our 3 drop stitch into the same stitch. Remember, we're not pulling up to the height of our work. And now I should be ending with 7 double crochets. And that's it. That's our repeat. Now you are going to now you're going to repeat rows 2, 3, 4, and 5 all the way till you get to the length that you want underneath your armpit. So you're going to start your count maybe 3 or 4 inches underneath your armpit, or whatever is going to be the most comfortable for you. You will end on a row 3. So you're going to do rows 2 through 5 repeats, but once you end and you get the length from underneath your armpit down, you'll end on row 3. Okay? Go ahead and finish that out, and I'll meet you back here to show you how we're going to split up our panels for our front and our back. Okay, so here I have completed the bottom part where I want. My length is approximately 22 inches, and that's just going to be before my armpit hole. We're going to count in from the sides, both sides. We're going to count in, and we're going to put a stitch marker. And that's going to be for the front panel to separate from the back panel. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue working my pattern, but I'm going to do it in 3 separate panels. So I'm going to continue going from here, and I'll stop at my stitch marker. When you begin your next panel, you'll begin at your stitch marker. So you'll have one panel stopping at your stitch marker and one panel beginning at your stitch marker. So you should have 2 stitches for the first row only per stitch marker on that side, and then you'll just continue your pattern back and forth until you get to the top of your shoulder. So for me, it's going to be approximately 9 inches. If you are going a size up, then maybe approximately 10 inches, or a size down, approximately 8 inches, but it's going to be more to the comfort that you like. Alright, so now I've got my panels done. What I've gone ahead and done is marked out from the center of my back panel 9 stitches. And when we begin to whip stitch our shoulders together, this is where we'll stop, leaving sort of like a lapel on each side. For a size large, I've done 14 rows up. For each size up and each size down, you'll do 2 rows. So for example, a medium will be 12, an extra large will be 14. Go ahead and whip stitch those up, and I'll meet you back for the arms. Okay, here I have whip stitched my shoulder closures together. I did not work into my end stitches. Now I counted out 9, so there are 9 stitches between my stitch markers, so I have 11 stitches unworked. Now if you're working a size smaller, you're going to go down by 2 stitches, so you'll have 9 stitches unworked. If you're working a size larger, you'll go up by 2 stitches, so you'll have 13 stitches unworked. Alright, so now we're going to get started on our arm, and what we're going to do is we're going to start right into the armpit area. What I'm going to do is tie my yarn onto this here because I want one less end to weave in. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is slip stitch right to the middle, and I'm going to begin half double crocheting into every side. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to put 1 half double crochet around the stitch itself, and then 1 half double crochet into the top of the stitch. 1 half double crochet around the stitch, 1 half double crochet into the top of the stitch. Keep doing that all the way around, and I'm going to meet you right back at the beginning to show you how we're going to decrease. Okay, here we are. We've come all the way around our sleeve. This is our first half double crochet here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to half double crochet 2 together. So we're going to yarn over. We're working in continuous rounds, so we're not slip stitching into any rounds. We're going to go into our first half double crochet and pull up a loop, and then go into our next half double crochet, pull up a loop. We should have 4 loops on our hook now, and then we'll yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. We're going to place a stitch marker right there, and when we come back around, this is where we're going to begin our decrease. So I'm going to go back around one more time, and I'll show you the decrease once more, and then I'll let you finish out your arms. Okay, here I am back at the bottom of my armhole where I need to decrease. So I'm going to remove my stitch marker and begin my decrease into that first stitch. So yarn over, go into the stitch, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch without yarning over, pull up a loop, and now you should have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through all 4, and replace your stitch marker. And that's what we're going to continue all the way around. Okay, so I have grown my sleeve to 30 stitches. You can somewhat tell right here, and then I've gone about 4 or 5 extra rows for the length that I want. Now, because everybody's shoulder and arm spaces are going to be different, your 30 stitches might be shorter. If you have a smaller size, your 30 stitches might be longer. So you can customize and stop your decreasing as you see fit for the size length of your arms. All right, now that we've got our arms done, our next step is going to be to create our hood. Now the hood that we're going to do, we're going to work our hood along the front flap, along the back that we left open, and then along the next front half. And we're going to work all half double crochets. Since I have this yarn here, I'm going to connect my yarn so that I have one less end to weave in. You guys know I do not like weaving in ends, and anything I can do to weave one less in, then that's what I will do. Okay, snip my little ends here. It's not going nowhere. Okay, so we are going to take our corner here, and what we're going to do, we're going to chain our 1 for height. Now we're going to half double crochet into every single stitch, all the way down the front, all the way down the back, all the way down the other side, and then we'll turn and we'll half double crochet again. So I'm going to do that this way, and then I'll meet you right back at this corner. Okay, now that I've made it to this side with my half double crochet, I'm just going to chain 1 and turn, and I am going to half double crochet back and forth, creating my hood.
until I get to about 10 or 12 inches in height.
Or when you lift it up, it goes to the top of your head. We want to stop about 2 rounds short because I'm going to teach you a little trick to make your point not so pointy in the back of your hood. So go ahead and work that out until just when you get to the top of your head, and I will teach you that trick. Okay, I have worked my hat to 22 rows, which is 12 inches. I found my middle stitch and I put a stitch marker. Now I'm going to work 2 more rows, decreasing at my stitch marker, and that's going to help to soften the point of our hood. So let me work my half double crochets up to here, and I'll show you how we'll decrease. Okay, so I've gotten to my middle stitch marker. I have 2 middle stitches because I have an even amount of stitches. If you have 1 center stitch, you're going to work your decrease over your 3 center stitches. If you have 2 center stitches, you're going to work your decrease over 4 center stitches. So let me show you. We're just going to yarn over, go into our next stitch and pull up a loop, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and into the next, pull up a loop. So I'm working mine over 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through all of my loops, and then continue working my half double crochets down to the end. And this will be where I replace my stitch marker, because now when I come back I've created 1 center stitch, and I'm going to decrease over 3 stitches, and that's going to soften it when we put our hood together. Okay, so let me finish this out. I'll come back and show you the decrease one more time. Alright, I've made it to my center stitch. This will be our last decrease. I'm just yarning over, let me remove my stitch marker, going into my first stitch, then into my middle stitch, and then into my next stitch. Yarning over and pulling through all of my loops, and then continuing on to my half double crochets. So remember, I told you when we start to sew this together, it's going to help soften that big point that would typically be there in your hood, so you have just a slight curve, and then we'll sew these up together. So let me finish out these half double crochets, and then I'll meet you back here to sew it all up.
We're going to sew up our hood with a whip stitch, going in 1 stitch, through the other first stitch on the other side, and then really just coming back around and doing it again all the way to the end, making sure that your stitches are nice and even and that you're not pulling too tight so you don't get that ruffled look.
Okay, so getting started on the sash, I'm switching to a hook that has a really sharp point, and it's going to be more helpful in making the sash. The sash is not going to be loose. We want it to be tighter because we don't want it to pull too much. So go ahead and get a slip knot. We're going to chain 2, and then into the second chain from the hook, we're going to put 2 single crochets. 1, 2. Now we're not going to chain 1 after each row. You are going to turn your work, making sure that you're turning so that your yarn is pulling from the back of your work, not from the front of your work, okay? So now we are going to single crochet into the first stitch. Remember, we're not chaining 1. Into the second stitch, we are going to put 2 single crochets. That's the end of your second row. Now we're going to turn our work again, making sure that the yarn's coming from the back and not flipped through the front. And we're going to single crochet into each stitch. So our sash is only going to be 3 stitches wide. If you would like yours to be wider than that, then go ahead and make yours wider. That's your third row. Turn your work without chaining one and single crochet again into each stitch. Now you're going to do this until your sash measures approximately 1.5 to 2 times the width of the widest part of your body. And let me go ahead and finish this row, and I will teach you how to close it up once you get to the size that you want. So this is what we're making. This is what's going to look like at the end. Now I've already washed and dried my sweater that I made a few times, so it's not as clean. It's a little bit more fuzzy. Okay, so now when we are going to end our row, you're going to turn your work just like we did before. And the way we're going to close this up is we're going to work 2 single crochets together, but we're going to work that over the first stitch and the last stitch. So you should have 3 loops on your hook. Yarning over, pulling through all 3. That's going to take you to your point. You can chain 1, you can weave in your ends if you like, or you can just snip it really close for your sash. And that's what your work is going to look like. And of course it's going to be longer. All right, you can finish out your sash, meet me back here, we'll get started on the pockets, or you can forego the entire stash and just put buttons on the front of your cardigan. Okay, now that we're done with the hood, I'm going to find my bottom corner, the one with an end on it, so I have a less end to weave in. Take my crochet hook and then half double crochet into every stitch. Now when you're turning your corners, we're going to half double crochet 3 times into the corner stitch, so that's what we'll start with. And we're going to go around and around and do 2 full rows of half double crochet for a border, and then we'll be done. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create pockets. And they're going to look just like this. They're going to match the hood and your arm. And we're going to leave a nice long tail to sew our pockets on. Now these are optional. You don't have to make the pockets, but I'm going to put pockets on mine, and you can decide if you want to put pockets on yours. So I am going to take my yarn, take a slip knot, and I'm going to chain 16. Now into the second chain from my hook, I'm going to put a half double crochet, and I'm going to half double crochet into every single chain all the way down. You should have 15 half double crochets. Okay, now that we've got 15 half double crochets all the way down, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and half double crochet into every single stitch. And you're just going to continue repeating this row until you have 13 rows total. Now that's just the size that I created my pockets. You can create your pockets in any size. I'm going to finish out my 13 rows, and then I'm going to meet you back here, and we will put a single crochet border on our pockets before we attach them. So go ahead and make your pockets and meet me back here for the border of the pocket. Okay, now that we've got our 13 rows, we are going to put a single crochet border. So chain 1, and we are going to put 1 stitch into the side of every single row. So we've got 1 there. Let's find the top of your row, and that's where we'll put our single crochets. 1 into the side of every single row. Now when you get to your corners, finding that chain space, we're going to put 3 single crochets to round out our corners. And then you'll single crochet into every chain space. Work your 3 single crochets in this corner, working back up, 3 single crochets, and then end right where we started. And I'll meet you back here so we can learn how to attach our pockets. Okay, so here we are. I've strategically placed my pockets to where my hands are going to meet and where it's going to feel comfortable for me. I've put stitch markers in every spot in both pockets or every corner, so that way my pockets don't shift and I make sure that they stay in the same spot. Now I'm just going to take a yarning needle and I'm going to whip stitch. You can sew it on however you like. I think the whip stitch looks the nicest, so I am going to So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through the 2 stitches on my single crochet and then through around the stitches lining the sides. So this stitch here was my first stitch that I connected it to. So I'm going to go through the stitch and then I'm going to go around the double crochet, and I'm just going to do that because I want to make sure that it stays really snug. I'm just going to go one whip stitch per single crochet. So you're going to want to do that all the way down and around, leaving the top open. Go ahead and finish that out and you will have finished with your crystal coat. Thank you everybody for watching. If you have made this project and you would like to share with us on the Jolie Knots Crochet community on Facebook, check us out and show us what you've created.